Iceland is about the same size as England, but with only 0.5% of the population. We hired a car and spent 2 weeks driving around the island in a clockwise direction, starting and ending at the capital, Reykjavik. We had good visibility most of the time, but for the first week it was pretty cold and with extremely strong winds, hence the camera shake. The most prominent landmark in Reykjavik is this modern cathedral, which has a tower shaped rather like a spaceship, although with the scaffolding on it that's difficult to tell. The city centre, where we stayed, has quite a lot of interesting old buildings. This one here houses the Icelandic Parliament. Our first day's drive took us up the west coast to Ólafsvík, a small fishing village on the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. Along the way we passed through very varied countryside, from lakes and mountains to basalt columns and huge lava fields. This hot water spring is the largest in Iceland. Icelanders have no need for central heating boilers. Their hot water arrives directly into their homes via a network of pipes, much like cold water. Reaching the Snæfellsnes Peninsula, we crossed over this mountain pass to the north side of the peninsula and our stop for the next 2 nights, Ólafsvík. We spent the following day exploring all around the peninsula. This is the 5,000-foot tall volcano at the tip of the peninsula. It's covered in cloud most of the time, so we were lucky to get this view. We came across a large colony of kittiwakes nesting on the cliffs. These Arctic terns nest very close to the road and get very aggressive if you get near them. Quite a few of their towns have very modern-looking churches. This one's in the town of Stykkishólmur on the north coast of the Snæfellsnes Peninsula. The next day we had a very long drive from Ólafsvík to Akureyri, the second largest town in Iceland. We stopped off to visit this traditional turf-roofed church. But our main outing on the north coast was a whale-watching trip. We got some very good views of a humpback whale. But you'll have to take our word for it, because we were so cold and wet we didn't even attempt any photography. Our next stop was 2 nights in Mývatn, which is Iceland's most popular tourist destination outside the Reykjavik area. Between Akureyri and Mývatn is this spectacular waterfall, Godafoss. Mývatn is a large lake, surrounded by lots of volcanic scenery and areas of geothermal activity. From the weird and wonderful landscapes of Mývatn, we drove across to the eastern fjords, staying 2 nights at Seyðisfjörður, with a short detour along this river gorge to visit another magnificent waterfall, Dettifoss. Seyðisfjörður, where we stayed the next 2 nights, is a pretty little town at the inland end of one of the fjords. The only road access is over a very high mountain pass, which, when we arrived, was very cold, wet and misty. But the following morning it was completely transformed. For the shortish drive down to our next overnight stop at Bridalsvik, we again had wonderful, clear weather up in the mountains. Skaftafell is the entrance to the national park, containing the vast ice cap that covers most of the southeast of the island. On the way to Skaftafell is a lagoon formed by water melting from a glacier. We felt we were appropriately dressed for the weather, but this lady is clearly made of stronger stuff. We were tempted to go in for a swim, but our costumes were in the bottom of our suitcase, so we settled for a boat trip instead.
This lake here is only about 70 years old. In 1932, this area was still covered with ice. Then the glacier started to retreat and pull back, and today we have 100 meters of ice breaking off the glacier every year. This fast melting of the ice is not only due to global warming, it's mostly because of the salt water that is in the lagoon. The size of this lagoon is 20 square kilometers, and the distance from the edge of the glacier and down to the sea is 5 kilometers. You can only see 10% of each iceberg. The other 90% are in the water, so you can imagine how huge the icebergs really are.
The boats they use are ex-US Army amphibious vehicles. When the icebergs become small enough, which can take several years, they drift out under the road bridge to the sea. Some of them then get stranded on the black volcanic sand. It's an extraordinary sight. After 2 nights in Skaftafell, we headed off around the south coast towards Hveragerði. This is a wonderful stretch of coastline with magnificent and varied scenery most of the way. These grassy cliffs are home to a colony of puffins. Geysir is the Icelandic name for their largest erupting hot spring, and is where our word geyser originates from. Geysir itself erupts very rarely, but fortunately there's another one nearby called Strokir that erupts about every 5 minutes. You can see in slow motion how the water builds up like a dome before shooting up into the air. The nearby waterfall of Gullfoss is perhaps the most spectacular of all in Iceland. On our final full day in Iceland, we toured the Reykjanes Peninsula, just to the south of Reykjavik. There's an interesting geothermal area, with almost no other visitors. But almost everyone heads for the number one attraction, the thermal baths called the Blue Lagoon. And thus our fantastic 2 weeks touring Iceland came to an end.